One of the things that Haikyuu consistently presents throughout its narrative is that getting better is a struggle. Learning new techniques, improving and polishing styles of play, and integrating it all with teammates during games is far from easy, and you can point to any multitude of events in the story to see this. Karasuno's loss to Seijo, which served as the foundation for newfound inspiration for the team. The team then subsequently losing dozens and dozens of practice games and becoming used to punishment as a result of finding a new gear during the camp in Tokyo. Hinata suffering sheer humiliation after desperately accepting the role as ball boy, only to come out of it with a new sense of perspective and a greater field of vision for the sport. Haikyuu understands that evolution and progression and improvement are all extremely messy. It's imperfect by nature as you stumble around and find how to grasp hold of an identity, as teams and individuals. And this theme is applied to Kageyama's journey as well. Although, due to his immense skill, his problem was more of a psychological and personal hurdle than a technical one. After being invited to the All-Japan Youth Training Camp for elite talents, Kageyama had his eyes opened in a sense. As good as his teammates at Karasuno are, here he was being pushed to his limit by others who were just as good or even better than he was. He found it exhilarating to be able to fit into a practice dynamic full of the best that the country had to offer, and he savored that feeling, developing a sort of growing hunger to be able to play with and against top talent. And one of those talents was Miya Atsumu, who deeply impressed Kageyama with how beautifully he was able to perform as a setter, so much so that he sort of became an example for Kageyama to learn from in a short amount of time. However, due to some key words, Atsumu's lasting impression on Kageyama ended up being one of confusion.
ちなみにトビオ君はなかなかトゲトゲしい第一印象やったけど、プレーはだいぶお利口さんよな。
Atsumu is conceited and egoistic. He's a special player and he knows it. Yet with these words, he also proves to be deeply intuitive. Because while Kageyama's talent speaks for itself, his demeanor on the court keys Atsumu into his mentality and strikes him deep because of how much it rings true. Kageyama is filled with regret, shame, and fear at his experience in junior high, where he would constantly berate his teammates for not living up to his standards and for not keeping up with him. He never had bad intentions, but his will to win and his drive to continue to stay on the court were so fierce that he failed to treat those that he was setting to with any tact or respect. And this led to him being given an infamous nickname, the King of the Court. The tyrannical, egocentric king who would never settle for anything less than perfection from his teammates, and who disregarded anyone who couldn't keep up as a commoner. Kageyama never intended to be viewed this way, and he never truly felt those things, but the way his passion manifested made that an accurate label. These bad habits of his led to his teammates abandoning and losing faith in him, and in his coaches lamenting his wasted potential. Kageyama never wanted to feel this again, and so in joining Karasuno, he did his best to stifle this kingly nature of his, wanting to ensure that his teammates would always be there for him. He never wanted to feel lonely, and so although his habits did crop up on rare occasions, he became someone who rarely ever criticized his teammates, apart from Hinata. He let go of any and all ego on the court. And to add to that, in trying to discover the key to perfecting a new quickset, Kageyama sought advice from his longtime role model and rival of sorts in Oikawa.
チビちゃんが欲しいトスに 100% 答えているか、答える努力をしたのか、それを理解できないなら、お前は独裁の王様に逆戻りだね。
All of this ingrained an idea in Kageyama's mind, a new philosophy, that he is there in the service of his team, that if his spiker demands something from him, it is up to him to supply exactly what is required, and not the other way around. It's a combination of a sort of opposite reaction and compensation in fear of being left behind by his teammates, and of his admiration of Oikawa's attributes, and it manifests in an on-court personality that is a little bit of a goody two-shoes. And because he approaches his game in a completely different way, it's something Atsumu is able to pick up on and make note of to Kageyama almost immediately.
ミヤさん。お利口さんってどういう意味ですか？
そのまんまの意味。真面目で素直で子やねって。俺のセットで打てへんやつはただのポンコツや。
Naturally, this was all a bit of a shock. Atsumu is clearly one of the best players of his age, and playing with him was such a thrill and example for Kageyama. But here he is saying something completely opposite to what Kageyama had learned was the right way to go about things, something that reaffirms his junior high mentality in a sense. But it brings up a huge conflict. Of the two setters that are currently the biggest influence on him, who is correct? Could Kageyama be limiting himself and his team by not pushing them to be better? Or was Oikawa right? He's tried so hard to not be the king, tried so hard to not criticize his teammates. But the setter's job is to get the most offensive potential out of the team. Could Karasuno be better in this regard? Can they go up another level if Kageyama challenges them, if he asserts more authority? His greatest fear is to have no one to set to, but he is driven by such a fervent passion that he can't stand the idea of not trying to improve. Can he push them in a healthy way without being abandoned? He doesn't know. Luckily, the practice match against Dateko comes at the perfect time to put everything out there. A great and difficult opponent, Kageyama playing well but his teammates struggling, it all makes for a great time to take Atsumu's words into consideration. But again, his old habits get the better of him, he explodes, and he immediately regrets the things he says. It's a scary situation for Kageyama, one where he doesn't quite have the perspective to understand how to approach things. He isn't being entirely selfish here. He truly cares for Karasuno and wants to win for both himself and them, but in searching for a way to improve them, he slips into old, selfish, and prideful habits. And he gets stuck. Does he try and be ambitious and turn into the old tyrannical king? Or does he give up on that and settle, even if he thinks that his personality isn't suited for that? Atsumu or Oikawa? What type of setter does he want to be? However, Kageyama's mistake here is even considering that settling is an option for Karasuno, a team that continuously strives for greater heights, whose ambition is only matched by the work they put in to achieve that ambition. And his other mistake is believing that his only two options were Tyrannical King and Goody Two-Shoes, neither of which is a role that truly suits who he is as a person. Oikawa didn't give him bad advice. He gave him some very good advice, tips that worked for him personally and that would help Kageyama to achieve his goals at that moment. But Kageyama believed that that mentality was to be maintained in all aspects of his game, when that wasn't the case if he wanted to become the best he could be and help Karasuno optimize their offensive talents. Every team is different. Different things work for different players, different styles are advantageous. What works for Oikawa is this selflessness. While the man himself is incredibly prideful and petty at times, what it translates to is a setting style that gets the best out of his teammates by learning their likes, dislikes, habits, and strengths, and delivering sets that adhere to those aspects perfectly. It is ironically a setting style without ego. And given what Atsumu tells Kageyama at the camp, at this point in the story, he is the other end of the spectrum, something similar to Kageyama's old mentality, but with a laid-back, confident air instead of a scowl. An egoistic fire and sheer confidence that his sets are ideal, and that anyone who can't keep up with them just isn't worth setting to. And clearly this works for him and his team. But Kageyama's style isn't exactly either of these. He has learned the benefits of accommodating his teammates, but his kingly tendencies have been beneficial at points too, and they are a part of him. He doesn't need to be Oikawa's artful and selfless elegance, and he doesn't need to be Atsumu's prideful fire. He can be neither and both. He can be something in between. And Hinata helps remind him of both this and of who he really is.
勝ちに必要なやつになら誰にだってトスを上げる。 でも俺は今のお前が勝ちに必要だとは思わない。
The key here is that Hinata has always been the one at the brunt of Kageyama's king of the court nature. While the setter has constantly tried to be proper to his Karasuno teammates, even to Tsukishima at times, and while those efforts have been beneficial in helping the team operate better and in building bonds and respect, Hinata is a different case. The two have reached many compromises in their short careers so far, but they have always pushed each other to be better, and as such, there have been many occasions in which Hinata reached new heights and learned new things because of Kageyama's so-called tyranny. And because of this, he knows the value of the king of the court, and he knows better than anyone that repressing this is not only stifling who Kageyama is, but it is depriving Karasuno of a potentially great tool. And so, Hinata reminds everyone that being a king is not necessarily a bad thing. That with the right sort of approach, having a king of the court on the team can be a tremendous asset. And what's important is that his teammates and coach accept this. They know who Kageyama is. They know that he means well and that he has a good heart, but they also know that he's tunnel-visioned and immature at times, and that he will make mistakes. Karasuno is a team made up of a series of healthy give-and-take relationships, and they're fully willing to support Kageyama through those times and help him. Something that his old team at Kitagawa Daichi was not able to do, and something that Kin Daichi has frequently expressed regret over. Kageyama is a prodigy, but his communication has never been great, and that's hurt him in the past. But luckily, now he's at a place where those around him understand him and will help him find a style that works for him and Karasuno as a whole. He will stumble, but he'll never be alone.
最高のセッターになるよう努力します。
それこそ今更だな。お前はずっとそうだろ。
And most luckily for Kageyama, now he's got someone that's extremely perceptive and emotionally intelligent to bridge any communication gaps that he might need assistance with, and to help him find a breakthrough and reach an understanding. Kageyama has given Hinata so much confidence in the past, telling him that there is nothing wrong with his identity as a decoy, and assuring him that he is invincible on the court as long as he is there to support him. Well, now it works both ways. Now Hinata is telling Kageyama that there is nothing wrong with being himself, and he is able to use his gifts to return the favor. Hinata wouldn't be the player he is without Kageyama, but things work the other way around too. He helps Kageyama realize that he can turn a moniker that he lamented and was ashamed of into something to be proud of. It's not as if his sheer unrelenting spirit and presence have not been a great benefit and saving grace to Kageyama before, but now is the tangible moment in which he is telling his partner that he can be invincible too. In this moment, Kageyama understands what he needs to do. There will be mistakes and setbacks, but he understands that his team will support him and he knows the approach he has to take. It's a mix of it all. Authority, respect, and communication. It's not exactly what works with Oikawa, and it's not exactly what works with Atsumu, but it's perfect for him. And that's what a setter is. Someone who knows their strengths and understands how to get the best out of their teammates. He need not serve others without speaking his mind, but he needs to assert his authority and learn what works with his team the most. Whether he is going to be a tyrant or a good ruler is up to him. And as such, this recrowning of the king is not only a celebration and acceptance from Hinata and Karasuno of the type of person that Kageyama is, but it's a symbolic affirmation that Kageyama need only be genuine. Be respectful and understand the differences between teammates, but don't be afraid to try to push them to be better, because that's what this team is all about. Constantly taking risks, always pushing onwards. The perfect home for someone like Tobio Kageyama. From a lonely, broken tyrant king to a setter playing in service of others yet simultaneously holding himself and his team back, to a benevolent yet authoritative king once more, accepting that this is who he is, yet incorporating all that he has learned to be able to help his team achieve the improbable. Many thanks for watching.
どんなにいい子ぶろうとしてもお前の本質は王様なのだ。観念するがいい。新コート上の王様誕生だー